Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today. My name is Tammy Williams. I am a contract specialist for the Texas Lottery Commission. This is the pre-proposal conference for the website hosting services RFP number 362-2024-0001. On the panel with me today, we have Eric Williams, TLC Hub Coordinator, Kyle Wolf, TLC Assistant General Counsel, Juanito Riley, TLC Contracts and Procurement Manager, and Jason Canaday, TLC Information Security Officer. If you have not already done so, please scan the QR code with a mobile device or use the link that was provided to sign in. A copy of the sign-in sheet will be posted on the ESBD, and that's the Electronic State Business Daily, and Texas Lottery website prior to the end of the next business day. This is for sharing of information between prime vendors and subcontractors. Due to the confidential information related to this RFP, communication will be primarily through emails. We strongly advise you to check with your IT department to ensure that our emails will not be filtered away. Some businesses block out the phrase lottery, so you won't be able to receive emails from the Texas Lottery Commission if the filter does not allow it to come through. This conference is being recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the conference, and we will answer in the order received during the question and answer sessions at the end of each part. Our Contracts and Procurement Manager, Juanito Riley, will be monitoring the Q&As. We will review the recording after the conference and restate the questions and answers in the Q&A document, which will be provided to proposers who submitted a letter of intent to propose, or a LOI, and non-disclosure statement, or NDS, in accordance with the schedule of events. We will give our best responses to your questions today. However, any questions we cannot answer today will be answered in writing and will be included in the Q&A document. Please note the written Q&A document is our final answer. Following this conference, if you think of additional questions, you have an opportunity to submit these in writing. This is your opportunity to ask questions, and we encourage you to do so regarding the requirements of the RFP. If you are unsure of language written in the RFP or need further clarification, this is your chance to receive the information you need. After proposals are received, it is then the Texas Lottery's time to ask questions and/or seek clarification if needed. Please note that any oral communication that would alter or amend the RFP as written is not binding. Any non-confidential changes or modifications to the RFP will be made in writing and posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website. For example, any changes to the schedule of events. You are encouraged to check these websites throughout this process and once more before submitting a proposal. Please note that there may be several RFPs posted on the TLC website at one time, so be sure that you are viewing the correct RFP for updates. This RFP is open to any and all vendors who perform the services and have submitted a LOI and an NDS in accordance with the schedule of events. To submit a proposal, you do not have to be registered on the CMBL, which is the Centralized Masters Bidders List, be Hub certified, nor is there any approved vendor list. We will now briefly review the RFP by parts. While we may discuss only certain sections or provisions of the RFP during this conference, all sections and provisions of the RFP are important, and you should read and understand the entire RFP before submitting your proposal. You will have an opportunity after each part to ask general questions. Okay, Part 1, General Information. Section 1.1.2. In order to submit a proposal, prime proposers are required to have an authorized representative sign and submit a letter of intent to propose, attachment I of the RFP, in accordance with the schedule of events. Section 1.1.3. The TLC has a technical architecture document that contains confidential information. In order for a prime proposer to receive the confidential document, prime proposers are required to submit a signed non-disclosure statement, attachment J of the RFP, in accordance with the schedule of events. Section 1.4, Schedule of Events. This section includes critical dates for this procurement. If there are any changes to these dates up to the deadline for proposals, an amendment will be posted on the ESBD and Texas Lottery's website. Section 1.7, because we are a state agency, proposals are subject to the Public Information Act, aka Open Records Act. During the procurement process, we will not release any information contained in your proposal. However, after a contract is awarded, your entire proposal is subject to this act and is considered public information. If there is any information in your proposal that is confidential and exempt from disclosure under the Texas Public Information Act, you must mark it as confidential. Examples of confidential information may be financial information or information that you consider trade secret or proprietary. It is important that you mark every applicable page and/or section that you consider confidential, and if possible, mark which exception of the Texas Public Information Act it falls under. The Public Information Act is located under Texas Government Code Chapter 552. Also, you cannot mark your entire proposal confidential. On the Office of the Attorney General's website is the Public Information Handbook, which lists all the exceptions. If you have information that you consider confidential, please respond to Section 1.7 and list the information, including a brief commentary or justification, in addition to marking individual sections or pages. Juanita, are there any questions on Part 1?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juanita Riley, and I am the Contracts and Procurement Manager. Tammy, there are no questions for Part 1.
Thank you. Part 2. Proposal process. Section 2.1. I am the sole point of contact for the RFP. All questions should be directed to me, including any hub questions. Section 2.4. A LOI to propose by the prospective prime proposer must be received in accordance with the schedule of events. Prospective prime proposers not submitting an LOI will not be considered. Section 2.5. Prospective proposers are required to submit a signed non-disclosure statement in accordance with the schedule of events. The Texas Lottery has a confidential document that contains information on the current web environment. The TLC will provide this document only to prospective proposers who submit a signed NDS. Additionally, there is a contact information section at the end of the NDS that needs to be completed when you submit your NDS so that you will be provided any confidential documents related to this RFP via email or fax. We need you to fill this section out so that we have a single point of contact and your most current contact information. List only one representative from each company as the main contact. Confidential documents or information will only be provided to the main contact for companies that have submitted a signed letter of intent and a non-disclosure statement. Section 2.6. Prospective proposers' authorized representative identified on the NDS will be provided the technical architectural document by email. The document will be password protected. The authorized representative will be provided a password via phone call to access the document. The technical architectural document will be provided to the prospective proposer's authorized representative within 3 working days of receipt of the signed NDS after the deadline of submission in accordance with the schedule of events. Section 2.7. Questions shall be submitted via email by the deadline in the schedule of events. Questions submitted after the deadline in the schedule of events will not be answered. Responses will be emailed or faxed to proposer's contact person listed in the NDS. Section 2.8. Proposals shall be submitted in either of the formats prescribed in this section. Proposals are due no later than the deadline established in the schedule of events. Late proposals will not be considered. No exceptions will be made. Section 2.8.1, hand or overnight delivery submission. Printed proposals may be delivered to Tammy Williams at the address provided in Section 2.1.2. The Texas Lottery headquarters is located at 1801 North Congress Avenue, the George H.W. Bush State Office Building. This is a secure building, and all visitors must check in at the front desk in the lobby of the main building off East 18th Street. If you are hand delivering a proposal, please allow adequate time to check in and for TLC staff to retrieve your proposal timely prior to submission time listed in the schedule of events. Proposers shall submit one signed original and one copy of its proposal. For RFP Section 4.6, proposers shall provide one original and one copy of evidence of financial soundness. For Part 5, proposers shall provide one signed original and one copy of all required HSP documentation. Proposals submitted must be bound in a 3-ring binder. The cost proposal shall be in a separately sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal. Section 2.8.2, electronic delivery submission. Only proposers who have submitted a signed NDS can submit an electronic proposal. Electronic responses shall be sent via a secure online portal. Instructions for electronic proposal submission is provided in the secure online portal document, Attachment K, of the RFP. Electronic responses must be received no later than the deadline established in the schedule of events. The proposer shall submit one signed original of its proposal, one copy of evidence of financial soundness, and one signed original of its cost proposal, and one signed original of its Part 5. That must be in a searchable and unprotected portable document format, or PDF. Each PDF file attachment shall be a separate document and clearly named. Be sure that your proposal contains responses to all sections and parts of the RFP, and be sure your proposal numbering corresponds with that of the RFP. You may provide a blanket acknowledgement and acceptance for parts 1, 2, and 3, unless a section requires a specific detailed answer. Parts 4 and 6 require a section-by-section response. This means for our 4.1, we are looking for a 4.1 in your response that corresponds to the RFP. If proposers feel this section does not provide for a detailed response, then it is acceptable to state that you agree and will comply. Section 2.8.7. The proposer's commitment, Attachment A, and the background information certification, Attachment D1 of the RFP, must be signed by an officer or agent of proposer with the authority to contractually bind the proposer, and the signed attachments must be included in the proposal. Section 2.8.11. Please note copyrighted proposals are unacceptable and may be rejected. Section 2.9. This section covers the format and contents for which your proposal must be organized, which includes letter of transmittal, executive summary, section-by-section response to the RFP, evidence of financial soundness, one original and one copy if submitting a printed version, or one separate PDF if submitting electronically, hub subcontracting plan, one original and one copy if submitting a printed version, or one separate PDF if submitting electronically, sealed cost proposal, attachment to the original proposal only if submitting a printed version, or one separate PDF if submitting electronically. Proposer's commitment, Attachment A, and background information certification, Attachment D1. Section 210, letter of transmittal. The letter must state that the proposal is valid for 180 days. Also include an overview of why your company is most qualified, and include a statement accepting the terms and conditions in Part 3 or any exceptions to such. Section 2.11, executive summary. It should be a full and concise summary and not exceed 5 pages. Section 2.13, Proposer's Cost Proposal. Cost proposal must be in the format included in Attachment G of the RFP and needs to be submitted in accordance with Section 2.9. Disclosure of cost in the body of the written proposal is cause for disqualification. Do not include any marketing material or other information in your cost proposal. The cost proposal is not opened until after the proposal is scored on its technical merit. Therefore, any additional materials that are included in the cost proposal will not be evaluated. Section 2.14, multiple proposals. Proposers may submit only one proposal and one cost proposal. If a proposer submits more than one proposal, all proposals from that proposer may be rejected. Section 2.15, any RFP non-confidential changes, modifications, or cancellations will be posted on the TLC and ESBD websites. Section 2.18, proposal evaluation. The scoring matrix is attachment F of the RFP and will be used for evaluation of proposals in response to this RFP. Please note that there are two pass-fail categories, HSP analysis and financial analysis. Your proposal essentially goes through 4 phases once it's submitted. Initial assessment for compliance and completeness. It is reviewed for financial analysis and HSP. It is reviewed and evaluated for its technical merit, and the cost proposal is opened and reviewed. If at any given time your proposal is disqualified, you will receive a notice stating such. Juanita, are there any questions on part 2?
Tammy, there are no questions for part 2.
Thank you. Part 3. This part describes the terms and conditions which apply to the procurement process and which will become part of the contract executed pursuant to this RFP. Please read over this entire RFP document to ensure that you fully understand and will comply with all provisions. Any exceptions to the RFP should be clearly stated in the letter of transmittal, providing specific and detailed reasons for each exception, along with suggested alternative language. The contract resulting from the RFP will incorporate the RFP, any amendments, the questions and responses, the contractor's proposal, and cost proposal. Please note a performance bond is required under RFP Section 3.36 and is required under the State Lottery Act. Therefore, we cannot accept alternatives. Under Section 3.57.1, the contractor will be required to take the Texas Lottery Cybersecurity Training Program and sign the Information Security Agreement. In addition, Section 3.57.2, Prohibited Technologies, Section 3.57.3, Cloud Computing, and Section 3.57.4, Data Protection, are recently new laws that have passed. Juanita, are there any questions on Part 3?
Tammy, there are no questions for Part 3.
Thank you. Part 4, Required Information. Sections 4.1 through 4.4. Although these sections seem brief in the RFP, these sections require proposers to gather, compile, and submit a great deal of detailed documentation. Please read these sections in depth and provide all the information in your section-by-section response. So for 4.1 in the RFP, we want to see 4.1 in your proposal. Section 4.5, Conflict of Interest. In this section, you are asked to disclose any actual, potential, and/or perceived conflicts of interest. Please review this section and make any disclosures. Section 4.6, Financial Soundness. The Texas Lottery Commission does a thorough financial analysis of all proposals. Please provide the information requested under this section. If you feel this information is confidential, please mark it as such. This is a pass-fail category on the scoring matrix. It is critical that you provide the requested information. Section 4.7, Background Investigations. TLC reserves the right to conduct an in-depth background investigation on the apparent successful proposer. Section 4.7.2. A background investigation may be conducted on contractually defined vendor principals, meaning those who will be directly involved in selling or leasing the goods or performing the services subject to this RFP or resulting in a contract. These include partners, shareholders, officers, and directors who are directly involved. Section 4.7.3. Background investigations may be conducted on vendor employees who meet one or more of the criteria under this section. The contract resulting from this RFP requires a background investigation of employees on site at the Texas Lottery Commission. Background investigations will include fingerprinting. The apparent successful proposer may be required to complete background forms by the prescribed time after the written announcement of the apparent successful proposer by the Texas Lottery. As mentioned before, we ask that all proposers complete and submit attachment D1 with its proposal. This is a certification that your company would not be denied a sales agent license under the Texas Government Code 466.155, which is attachment D in the RFP. Section 4.8, disclosure of interested parties. If requested, the successful proposer will be required to fill out a 1295 form with the Texas Ethics Commission. This is for contracts over $1 million and if you are not a publicly traded company. Juanita, are there any questions on part 4?
Yes, we do have one question. And that question is, can attachment I, the LOI, and attachment J, NDS, be submitted in the same email, or should they be different emails? And the answer to the question is they can be submitted in the same email. And that's the only question we have, Tammy.
Thank you. Part 5, HSP. At this time, I will turn it over to Eric Williams, who's going to go over part 5. Eric.
Thank you, Tammy. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams. I'm the Hub Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. I will be covering a very crucial element of your proposal, the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or HSP. If you're not the individual responsible for preparing the HSP, please pass this information to them and recommend they watch the video of this pre-proposal conference, which will be posted on the agency website. The Hub Subcontracting Plan is used to identify both Hub and non-Hub subcontractors that will be utilized under the awarded contract. All proposers, Hub and non-Hub, submitting a response to this RFP are required to submit an HSP. No one is exempt from submitting an HSP. As Tammy previously mentioned, the HSP is a pass-fail element of this RFP. No evaluation points are given for the HSP, and proposers must submit an HSP with their proposal, regardless of their subcontracting intentions. Any proposal received, not including an HSP, will be rejected, and the technical portion will not be evaluated. So it's important to submit a completed HSP with your proposal. Also, during the reviewing process, if it is determined that your submitted HSP has failed, your proposal will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. The HSP process is governed by a rule established by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. For Section 5.1 of the RFP, you are responsible for reading and reviewing this rule. Assistance for preparation of the HSP. To assist you with the HSP, the Texas Lottery provides the following resources and assistance. All vendors are strongly encouraged to take advantage of all the resources. This pre-proposal conference will be posted on the agency website. A copy of the TLC's pre-bid proposal conference booklet regarding HSP requirements is available on the agency website. A HSP quick checklist is included in the RFP. Proposers have the opportunity to submit written HSP questions at any time upon the proposal deadline, up until the proposal deadline. However, we suggest you submit questions early to allow yourself the necessary time to cure any deficiencies with your plan. You are encouraged to start working on your plan right away to give yourself plenty of time. The HSP Q&A is posted on the TLC website and the ESBD, which will be a rolling document. So be sure to check the date posted. We will review drafts of your HSP to identify deficiencies and provide feedback. However, we will not state whether your draft has passed or failed. We will conduct one-on-one workshops upon request. These may be conducted via Zoom, Teams, or telephone conference call. The purpose of the workshops is to discuss the hub subcontracting requirements, answering questions specific to conducting the good faith effort and completing the HSP forms. This process will allow you the opportunity to submit a draft HSP for review by the Lottery Commission prior to the proposal deadline. As previously stated, this process does not guarantee that the HSP submitted with the proposal will pass. It is the proposer's responsibility to understand the requirements of the HSP and to perform all the required steps prior to submitting their HSP. The last date to review any draft HSPs for deficiencies and one-on-one workshops is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. As per section 2.1 of the RFP, please forward all questions or requests to Tammy. The definition of a subcontractor is very broad and applies to any third-party vendor used to fulfill a portion of the contract. Our definition of a subcontractor is a person who contracts with a successful proposer to work, to supply commodities, or contribute toward completing work for the Lottery Commission. In other words, if the successful proposer who's awarded this contract is paying anyone who is not an employee to provide goods and or services, they are very likely subcontracting under this definition. These individuals would receive a 1099, unlike your employees who receive W-2s. We have identified potential subcontracting opportunities in section 5.5.1 of the RFP. These areas may or may not be subcontracted, depending on the proposer's existing resources, employees, and business model. You are not limited to the list in the RFP. However, if you intend to subcontract any portion of the contract and is not listed, you are responsible for identifying it in your HSP submission. We have included in the RFP a list of hub vendors by CMBL class and commodity description to assist you in finding potential hub vendors. The Lottery Commission does not endorse, recommend, or attest to the capabilities of any company or individual listed within the RFP or the CMBL Hub Search Directory. Proposers who intend to subcontract any portion of the contract must indicate in the HSP form that they intend to subcontract and must perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods identified below. The goal of this good faith effort is to actively involve hubs in the Texas procurement process and ensure they receive a fair share of state business. Please check the appropriate boxes in section 2, the respondent subcontracting intentions of the HSP form, and perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods. The optional quick checklist will assist you in determining which of the 3 methods you should use. Good faith effort method A has 2 options. Method A, option 1. This option is for the proposer who will use only Texas certified hubs for all subcontracting opportunities listed in section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intentions on the HSP forms. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method A, option 2, is meeting the specified hub contract goal. This option is for the proposer who will use a combination of Texas certified hub vendors and non-hub vendors for the identified subcontracting opportunities listed in section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intentions on the HSP forms. However, the specified hub contract goal of 23.4% can only be met by the subcontracting opportunities awarded to the Texas certified hub vendors with whom the proposer has contracted for 5 years or less. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method B, good faith effort outreach. This option is for the proposer who will perform good faith effort outreach for each identified subcontracting opportunity listed in section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intentions on the HSP forms by notifying at least 3 Texas certified hubs per subcontracting opportunity, providing these hubs at least 7 working days to respond, excluding the day the solicitation was emailed, mailed, or faxed to the hub vendors, weekends, holidays, and any other day the executive director has closed the Texas Lottery Commission. Providing scope of work for hubs to determine whether they are interested. Providing a location where the specifications are located, i.e. linked to the posting on the ESBD or a physical location. Information regarding insurance and bonding requirements, if applicable. And in addition, notifying a minimum of 2 minority women, trade organizations, or business development centers, providing the same information above, as well as the same time frame for the response. If any proposer is a mentor protege, if any proposer is a mentor in a mentor protege agreement that is registered with the comptroller, the proposer may demonstrate a good faith effort for any subcontracting opportunity by subcontracting the work to his protege. Proposers using this method must perform outreach even for areas where a proposer has a pre-existing or exclusive subcontracting relationship that will be used in performance of this contract. If you use this method, again, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. The proposer who does not intend to subcontract. Proposers who indicate that their company will not be subcontracting any portion of the contract and will be fulfilling their entire contract with their own existing resources, including its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, will be self-performing. Keep in mind that a pre-existing subcontracting relationship is considered subcontracting, in which case you cannot claim self-performance. A pre-existing subcontracting relationship is a business affiliation your company has with a third-party vendor who is currently supplying your company with goods and/or services and will continue to supply those goods and/or services to assist you in the performance of this contract. If you determine that your company is capable of fulfilling the entire contract with your own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, please check the appropriate box in section 2, the respondent subcontracting intentions of the HSP form. Complete section 3, which is the self-performing justification, by providing a thorough explanation of how your company will perform the entire contract with its own employees, supplies, materials, and/or equipment as it relates to Part 6 of the RFP, the scope of services. Complete section 4, the HSP form, the affirmation prior to submitting your HSP with your proposal. Our evaluation process for proposals received on or before the deadline for proposals is to review and evaluate the HSP and all supporting documentation to determine if the HSP has passed or failed. During our review, we may request clarification of information or representation in your submitted HSP. Again, there are no evaluation points assigned to the HSP. It is strictly a pass or fail element. If it is determined that your HSP has failed, the technical portion of your proposal will not be evaluated. Following the award of the contract, any proposed changes to the HSP must be submitted for review and approval by the agency. A written change approval form will be provided by the Lottery Commission. Subcontracting without prior authorization is a breach of contract. Monthly subcontracting expenditure reports are required as a condition of payment. Also, the successful proposer must provide a written notice to each subcontractor informing them of their selection. A copy of this notice must be provided to the TLC no later than 10 working days after contract award as stated in section 5.6.1 of the RFP. The notice must specify at a minimum the contracting agency's name, its point of contact or the contract award number, the subcontracting opportunity to be performed, the appropriate dollar value of the subcontracting opportunity, and the expected percentage of the total contract that the subcontracting opportunity represents. Again, we strongly encourage you to take full advantage of all of the available resources to assist you with your HSP submission. Once you submit your HSP with the proposal, there is no opportunity to cure. Please consult the schedule of events and make sure that you know which dates are critical in terms of preparing and submitting the HSP. In closing, I'll remind you again, if you're not the person who is responsible for completing the HSP, please pass this information to them, as well as let them know that today's pre-proposal conference will be available for review on the agency website. Please submit questions regarding the HSP after this conference in writing, and they will be answered and posted on the agency website and the ESBD. HSP questions can be submitted up until the deadline for proposals, which is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. Juanita, are there any questions regarding section 5, part 5 of the RFP?
All right, there are no questions for part 5. However, we did receive a question for part 4. The question is, for a new business, will a line or credit or a letter from a banker showing that they can finance the project for the contractor be enough? Under section 4.6 financial soundness, please review section 4.6.2 to see what evidence of financial you need to show. There are no additional questions.
Thank you, Juanita. So now we're going to go on to part 6, scope of services. Part 6 requires a section-by-section response. I will not be going into detail on this section. This is your opportunity to tell us how you will perform the services described in each section. It's not enough to say you can do something. Tell us how you will do it. Provide examples of techniques that you've used for success. Proposers need to demonstrate their abilities to do the work requested. Juanita, are there any questions on part 6?
Tammy, there are no questions for part 6.
Thank you. So we are towards the end of our conference. Please submit any questions in the Q&A feature, or you can submit questions in accordance with the schedule of events. There are just a few final reminders. All scope of service questions must be submitted in writing via email to me by the deadline in the schedule of events. Scope of service questions that are not submitted in writing by the time and date specified will not be answered. If you have a question on the RFP process, you can contact me and I may or may not be able to respond. Generally, this is the case for all sections except part 6, but don't hesitate to ask. Make note of all dates in the schedule of events. Proposers are responsible for checking the ESBD and TLC websites for any and all notices, amendments, and the HSP Q&A regarding this RFP. We will not directly email these to you. Prior to submission of your proposal, please review the entire RFP carefully to ensure that you submit all required information and/or documentation. The pre-proposal conference video and sign-in sheet will be on the ESBD and TL's website prior to the end of the next business day. And Juanita, are there any final questions before we go?
Tammy, there are no questions.
Okay, well, this concludes our conference. Thanks again for your attendance, and everybody have a good day.